guys, Ellen Woodbridge here, independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Australia. Welcome to our May Christmas Stampathon, our June Christmas Stampathon challenge. I am here to share with you all my vintage loveliness. So the theme for June, so starting today, the 25th of June, going through till the 24th of July, is vintage. So I have embraced red, turquoise in the form of mint macaron, and Sahara sand for my card. A great vintage palette. And I have drawn together the Tidings and Trimmings stamp set with the matching dies. I've used the labels from the Hippo and Friends, and for the background here I've used the stitched Greenery die, which gives you this amazing perforated background. So I want to show you how to make one of these cards. I've already made 8, and we're going, I'll show you. I've already made 8, including the 2 here, and we're going to make the 9th together. So I want to show you what I have done to make this card. I just have my bag of goodies here, some of which I have pre-prepared. Now to start, I'm going to grab out our stitched Greenery die, and we're going to run it through the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. So I have that just off to the side. Now under my machine I always put my silicone mat so it doesn't move around. So the plates I have for my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine are number 1, our base plate, number 2, which is our thin die plate. I have one number 3 die. Now this happens to be my cutting die. As you can see, I'm using very vanilla here, because how can you do a vintage card without very vanilla? Now I'm going to cover that with the die, pop in another number 3 top plate and crank it through. So this puts the perforations in the paper. It doesn't cut. So you can see here we've got those beautiful perforations in the paper, which I love. Now that is all the die cutting I'm going to do with you, because everything else I pre-prepared to make our video go a little quicker than my normal live videos. So as you can see here, our card to our vanilla piece of paper is very, very different. So this is very, very clean, and this is grunged up and very, very vintagey. So how did I do that? I used our blending brushes. So my blending brushes, I have a brown one, I have a blue one, I have red, orange, pink, purple, just general colors, and then I intermix them between that family of colors. So this is my brown one. I have used this ink pad quite a lot. I have recently re-inked it, but I have inked 8 cards since then. So I ink up, I just give it a tap off, and then I come in and I just go in circular motions, and I just want to make sure I'm doing this on my scrap piece of paper. So I start lighter, and then I go in and blend it in a little bit more. Okay, so I can add a bit more whenever I'm happy, and now we just have this one edge. It doesn't take long, but what I like about doing this, and I came across this completely unexpectedly, it highlights the the perforations that are in our piece of paper. So I've done the outsides quite heavily, or heavily compared to what they were, and then I just, with whatever's left on the brush, I just go along the middle, and that is our Sahara sand done. So next I just add in that touch of blue green with our, I will open it, I'm having troubles today, with our mint macaron. It's a bit stiff today. Now this I need a much lighter hand with. So what I've done, I've gone in and inked up the corners first, because they're going to be a little bit heavier than everywhere else. And I'm just going to bring it in slightly because I don't want to lose the vintage brown that is already there. Now the other piece that we are going to blend on is our sentiment piece, and I'm just going to use our Sahara sand, which I have left open just off to the side. Now every one of my cards is slightly different, and that's the joy of inking. Everything turns out differently every time. So while I am doing my blending, I am going to grab the label that we're stamping with, and I'm just going to grab all of my bits and bobs out here, and make sure you have the right brush. I do not need my blue brush anymore, so I'm going to pop that to the side, and I'm just going to go lightly along these edges to start off with, and this piece I am going to leave bare in the middle completely. So I'm just going to lightly ink over. I can go a little heavier at the end because my brush has a lot less ink on it, because I've gone through and done all of the sides. So I'm just going in again and using the residual ink in the brush to ink that up. So you can see I've got a nice vignette of a aged outside and a bit more bold on the inside. Now just a tip for using your brushes: if you hold it at the end, you have a much lighter touch and less control. For the most control, you can actually hold the head like this. For my hands, and as many of you know, I do have a disability, a neuropathy that affects my hands. I just like having my thumb on it, so then I can move my thumb back and forward and adjust my pressure. So I've done that. Actually, the other thing I wanted to show you are these stars that go with the Tidings and trimmings. I just want to show you what the vellum star looks like. And it's quite bold and crisp and not exactly what I want. So what I've done, I've turned it over. I have got, once again, my brush and my Sahara sand, and quite liberally brushed on some of the Sahara sand ink. So you can see there, I've grunged it up, and I like that because it's a perfect backdrop for the copper star without competing with the already vintage grunged up background. So I'm just going to get this one corner. I'm going to pop this aside to dry, and I can see here every time I touch it, I'm putting a white finger mark in it, but close enough is good enough. So I don't need, I'm losing my little bitty bits here. I don't need that piece. So now to stamping. Now, because I have made so many of these, I have set up and made a jig. So I just got a scrap piece of my mint macaron cardstock, popped it in my Stamparatus, popped this in. Imagine it's not cut. I stamped my sentiment, and then I took my Hippo and Friends dies. So I used the second largest die. Whoops, and all my magnets are retracting. And I cut the sentiment out. Now, I did not move the stamp off the Stamparatus. So then when I put this piece in, so you can see how inked that is when I put it in the clean piece, I have the perfect positioning for our sentiment, and I can mass produce quite a lot quite quickly. So using our cherry cobbler ink, now for a really, really nice complete stamping, I'm probably going to have to stamp this twice. And would you believe it, I got the perfect stamping straight off, but because I'm using the Stamparatus, if I needed to do that again, I absolutely could and still get a wonderful image. So you can see here in comparison, this image is a bit darker because I did have to stamp it a couple of times. And it's a bit more bold because I used a bit more pressure, where this one is a little bit finer. Okay, so now we have done all our inking, all of our vintaging up and distressing with ink. And now it's time for assembly. So where do you find us for the Christmas Stampathon Challenge? If you put Christmas Stampathon 2021 in a Facebook search, you will find our Facebook group. And if you're not already a member, you'll have a couple of questions to answer. And just to make sure you're not a robot or not some, I shouldn't say weird person, but just so we know you're a genuine crafter. And now I'm going to use our Take Your Pick tool, because I have this little star that I have die cut. That is going to go perfectly there, and pop this aside to dry for a second. Grab in my other copper star, my star and my leaf, and all these die cuts except for the labels come from the same die set. I'll show it to you again in a second. It's actually quite versatile. So I'm just grabbing all the 5 points of the star and popping this down as I knew I would drag that off, you know, as close as it'll go. And my word, let's try this once more time for me. You can also use the adhesive sheets, and then you create a sticker. Now, I'm going to have it roughly in the right spot, and of course it's going to move, but I'm going to grab a block. So this is what I did with the rest. Because you don't have hand issues like me, and because you're not doing a video, I know you will be very successful doing that. Now I'll bring back in my label, and I'm going to stick in my 2 greeneries. So we have the copper leaf and the holly, which is in the cherry cobbler, and I'll show you the die set. So this is the die set that goes with the stamps. So you've got the outline and the insert star, which is those 2, and then you have a larger one. You've got your stockings, leaves, your holly, your bow, more leaves, holly, the tiny star, and then you've got your holly berries. So it's 15 pieces in the die set. It's a great die set for an eclectic set, which really does lend itself incredibly well to this vintage feel. And I really think it's the font in the stamp set. So I'm just using my mega sticky Stampin' seal here, and I'm going to put, sorry, I've got to work backwards. So I'm going to pop on our leaf. And Siri wants to jump in on the fun as well. Pop this on first, so that's our copper piece. Then I'm just going to slightly offset, but place behind our berries. Okay, and then, because of course I didn't have them out and ready, I'm going to grab some, I'm putting my tongue in the right place so they would come out here. Find my handy dandy scissors and grab some dimensionals. So you can see this card is coming together fairly quickly, but you can imagine how well this card works with some mass production, which I have done in the half an hour here and there that I've had over the past couple of days. It's been a process. Life has been extremely busy recently, and it's just been a process. So take these off, and I know I'm doing this in the wrong order because I will need a big block, and I should have done this first, but alas we are not, and I will stick this down on the card base separately, but you will, that is not straight. Let's see if I can pop this up just a titch. There we go, that's a bit better. And then I'm going to hit all of these pieces again, so just the ends, just little dabs of our glue, otherwise we will see our adhesive through the vellum. So once again, I can quickly use this. Now, there are two ways you can finish this card off while that just adheres down there. So for this card, I have used some champagne rhinestones and just scattered through to trail your eye on that diagonal line, or without. So I'm going to show you them with, and you're going to imagine this piece is all nicely mounted on the cherry cobbler card base, which of course this one won't be, because I will need to use some pressure because this is a tad bent from all of the inking. So I am just putting this up here, and then a little one next to it, and then if it wants to come off, and then just a medium-sized one just down here, and it just follows that beautiful diagonal line. So I do hope you can find some vintage inspiration from what I have done today, and you can play along with the Christmas Stampathon as well. So we just ask that you make 4 cards. I've made more because I send a lot of Christmas cards to other demonstrators, my customers and family and friends. So it's a great way to get ahead, considering we are almost 6 months till Christmas. It is a good way to get ahead and get some of these in your stash ready for the Christmas rush, and know that you have your Christmas cards and other tags and maybe even some home decor sorted. Thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget to subscribe and like my video, and pop over to our Facebook page and give the challenge a go. I'll catch you next time.